Some episodes you plan, some episodes just refuse to wait. This is one of the second kind. KO and Sierra Marcus Hale with me as always, Braincast FM, where thoughts make noise. And today we are talking about something most people have noticed, but nobody is saying out loud what female sports anchors really think about men. Not what they say on camera, what they say when the camera turns off.
Yeah, it is. It's the absolute definition of an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
You can practically feel the tension around this topic before we even begin to, unpack it.
Completely palpable. And the origin of today's deep dive actually comes directly from our inbox. We got this profoundly fascinating email at braincastfm@gmail.com outlining this exact phenomenon.
Right.
And the moment I read it, I just knew we had to dive into this today because this exact type of raw, unfiltered observation, this peeling back of the societal curtain, that is precisely what Braincast FM exists to cover.
Exactly. It's what we do.
Right. We are looking at a staggering gap today, the gap between stated preferences and revealed preferences. And as a woman tracking this pattern over the last few years, it struck a massive nerve for me.
I can imagine. It's definitely an uncomfortable truth.
It is an uncomfortable but totally undeniable truth, and we are going to look at it unflinchingly today. We're going to explore what happens when you compare the public, highly compensated voice of female sports broadcasters with the private, unvarnished voice they use when the microphones are cut.
And just to, set the parameters here early on, because this is the kind of topic that immediately makes people put their defenses up.
Oh, absolutely.
We are not debating whether women should work in sports media. That's a settled, frankly, uninteresting question in 2026. The focus of this deep dive is strictly on the gap itself. It's a sociological, psychological dissection of a behavioral whiplash.
Yes, exactly. A behavioral whiplash. And to really understand this dynamic, you have to look at something we've been observing, which we'll call the street meme.
Right, the street meme.
Right, and I don't mean a meme like a funny picture on the internet with text over it. I'm using the term in the academic sense. A unit of cultural observation that is so compressed and so repeatable that it instantly communicates a recognized truth.
Like a cultural shorthand.
Exactly, a shorthand. I want you, the listener, to imagine a scenario that is incredibly common right now in 2024, 2025, and firmly into 2026 across the Western world, and particularly in places like Argentina, where the cultural conversation around gender and sports is incredibly intense.
Yeah, very intense over there.
Imagine you grab a random woman on the street and you ask her a simple, direct question. You ask, do we need men?
Right. It's the classic man on the street or woman on the street interview format. We've all seen 100 variations of this on our social media feeds. The microphone is just thrust in someone's face, the camera's rolling, and the question is dropped.
Yeah. And what is the culturally trained response to that? The default setting for this answer in the current climate trends, overwhelmingly predictably negative.
Definitely.
You hear things like, men are unnecessary, men are a problem. We are culturally at a point where men are broadly viewed in casual female conversation as a deficit balance.
Yeah, a liability, basically.
Exactly. If you ask this hypothetical woman on the street to complete the phrase, men are, you will receive just a battery of emotionally charged, generalized complaints. Men are threatened by strong women. Men are abusive. Men are immature.
Right, it's a whole list.
It's a massive list. Men are utterly unnecessary to the modern functioning of a woman's life. It is a posture of complete dismissal. The male gender is reduced to a category of liability. You see it on TikTok, you see it on Instagram Reels, you hear it at brunch.
Oh, for sure.
The phrases are completely standardized now. The bar is in hell, the bare minimum, the mental load. These are the buzzwords of a culture that rewards women with, social validation for expressing active disdain for men.
Which is a very specific script, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's considered empowering in the current zeitgeist to express a level of independence from men that borders on outright contempt.
It really does.
You get likes, you get shares, you get a chorus of Yas Queen in the comments when you publicly declare that a man adds zero value to your life.
Exactly. The social currency of that street-level register is hostility, or at least aggressive indifference.
Mm-hmm.
But here is where the observation grabs you by the collar and points out the whiplash. Take that exact same woman.
Okay.
The same woman who just confidently told a street interviewer that men are immature, useless, and entirely unnecessary. Give it 30 seconds. Hand her an ESPN contract.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sit her behind a beautifully lit studio desk, put a sleek sports graphic cycling behind her head, put a professional microphone in front of her, and tell her the topic of the hour is a male athlete. Let's say Marco Senesi getting called into the Argentine national football squad to replace an injured Lisandro Martinez.
The whole environment shifts. The stakes shift. And most importantly, the financial incentives shift entirely.
And the transformation is absolute. Suddenly, within the blink of an eye, the male athlete being discussed is described as fundamental. His presence on a defensive line is not just useful, it is essential, it is irreplaceable.
Right, he's elevated completely.
Suddenly, this man is painted as the deciding factor in whether an entire nation lifts a championship trophy or goes home in defeat. On the broadcast desk, this man suddenly has profound qualities. He reads the game, he commands space.
The language totally changes.
It totally changes. He brings a unique, unreplicable energy to the team. He is deeply underappreciated, and he has wholly earned this moment of glory.
It's an ideological 180-degree turn. You go from men are a net negative to society to this specific man is the cornerstone of an entire nation's hopes. And it happens seamlessly.
It is the exact same woman, the exact same mouth. It is just 30 seconds apart, metaphorically speaking. The whiplash is so complete and so perfectly theatrical that your first instinct is to just laugh at the sheer absurdity of it.
Yeah, it's almost comedic.
It's highly comedic. But underneath the comedy is a structural truth that we have to examine seriously. The gap between the street register, men are a deficit, and the studio register, this man is irreplaceable, is not a random anomaly. It's a system.
Now, you're a woman.
Right.
Does this actually ring true to you?
It rings incredibly, uncomfortably true. Speaking directly from my own experience and frankly, utterly rejecting the sort of modern feminist victimhood that tries to silence these uncomfortable observations, I can tell you this gap is profoundly real.
Really?
Yes. I have seen it. I have lived in the vicinity of it. It reveals a highly structural truth about how women evaluate men. It shows us the specific conditions, usually highly financial or fiercely professional conditions, that are absolutely required before a woman's public evaluation of a man is permitted to turn positive.
So there are conditions to the praise.
Always. Off camera, the default setting for so many women today is exactly what we just described. Resentment, categorical dismissal, a hyper-focus on men's flaws. But the moment a corporate contract is signed, the moment the camera light turns red, the survival instinct kicks in.
Right, the professional mandate takes up.
Exactly. Women in these roles realize, consciously or subconsciously, that their legitimacy in a male-dominated sphere requires them to adopt a posture of reverence. It is a contractual performance.
Oh.
It's not just a quirk of the industry. It's a survival mechanism. It's a blazer they put on over their actual beliefs, because if they spoke about male athletes on ESPN the way they speak about men in the group chat, they wouldn't last a week. The warmth is conditional. The praise is a transaction.
That is a heavy, heavy accusation to level at an entire industry. To fully understand why that survival mechanism takes the specific shape it does, we really need to pull back and examine the broader landscape of women in male sports television over the last decade.
Yeah.
Because the scale of this phenomenon is massive. This isn't just one or two rogue anchors.
No, we have to unpack the landscape because the acceleration over the last 5 years has been staggering. Women have moved into male sports broadcasting in massive numbers across every major Western market.
Everywhere you look, basically.
Everywhere. In the U.S., you cannot turn on a network without seeing female anchors, female tactical analysts, and female sideline reporters embedded in every major sport. NFL, NBA, baseball. In the UK, Sky Sports features women presenting Premier League football. They are deep into Formula One coverage, cricket, rugby.
And you mentioned Argentina earlier.
Yes, if you look at Argentina, the cultural texture there is distinct and particularly intense. Female voices have rapidly populated football debate programs, those highly aggressive news panels dedicated to the national team, and the daily coverage of the major domestic leagues.
So the presence is firmly established. It is no longer a novelty. It is the industry standard. But what fascinates me are the tactics these women use to establish their legitimacy in these spaces. What are the identifiable linguistic patterns you've observed?
The patterns are so consistent, you could set a watch to them. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that women in these broadcasting roles use formal names and full names significantly more often than their male counterparts.
Like deliberately formal.
Very deliberate. They won't just say Senesi, they will deliberately say Marco Senesi. They lean heavily, almost aggressively, into highly technical and tactical vocabulary. They will talk about the double pivot, the half spaces, the low block.
To sound more authoritative.
Yes, and why do they do this? They do it because they are operating under the immense professional pressure of knowing their fundamental knowledge of the game is silently, or sometimes loudly, questioned by the audience. They are constantly fighting the ghost of the fake gamer girl trope, but in sports.
Right, they have to prove they belong.
So they overcompensate to prove they belong in the room. It's linguistic armor. But the most crucial pattern, the one this entire deep dive hinges on, is that female sports presenters trend, almost universally, toward warmth, toward effusive praise, toward humanizing the athletes. They act as the empathetic shield for the players. They are the ones who will say, you have to remember how hard this player has worked to get back from injury, or he's such a dedicated professional off the pitch.
Now, let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because I think a lot of listeners are probably thinking the exact same thing right now.
Go for it.
Isn't that just basic professionalism? Doesn't the format of a mainstream sports broadcast simply demand a baseline of respect for the athletes being discussed? You can't anchor a massive football program on a major network and spend your airtime throwing insults at the players. The content inherently requires a polite, respectful register. If you are representing Disney or Sky Sports, you have to play nice.
Yeah.
That is the exact defense everyone reaches for. And it is completely, entirely dismantled the second you look at how men operate in the exact same under the exact same lights, with the exact same corporate logos behind them.
Really?
Yes. If the format itself demanded universal warmth and positivity, then the men would be universally warm and positive. But they aren't. No, they certainly are not. The contrast is night and day.
Male sports pundits are allowed to use the absolute full spectrum of human emotion. Admiration, sure, but also criticism, complete contempt, irrational obsession, open hostility. Look at Alvaro Morales.
Oh yeah, perfect example.
If you don't follow Mexican sports commentary, Alvaro Morales is a broadcaster who has built a massive, incredibly lucrative, culturally dominant career on one primary pillar: trashing Lionel Messi.
Literally just hating Messi.
That's his brand. He doesn't offer gentle, nuanced, tactical critiques. He mocks him. He belittles him. He calls him Messicito. And no accomplishment moves the needle for Morales. Messi won a World Cup, multiple Ballon d'Or, he performed statistical impossibilities on the pitch, and it never extracted genuine praise from Morales.
Right. The hostility is the product.
And the hostility is the entire reason the audience tunes in. And the networks pay him handsomely for it. He isn't fired for a lack of warmth. His contempt is financially viable. It drives engagement. His contempt is a monetized asset. And look at another example. Horacio Pagani in Argentina. Pagani represents an entire genre of sports television. We're talking about those late-night debate shows, the ones that run from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., where the structural foundation of the program is pure disagreement.
Just guys yelling at each other.
Just grown men shouting over each other, veins popping in their necks, performing intense, often completely irrational, negative opinions about players, managers, and entire football clubs. The format does not force positivity. Men prove every single night on every single sports network in the world that the format allows for rage, for contrarianism, for absolute disdain.
This brings us to a massive contradiction, doesn't it?
The core contradiction that every listener needs to let sink in right now. If men prove every single night that the broadcast format allows the full spectrum of human emotion, including contempt, irrationality, and hostility, why do female voices only occupy the artificially positive end?
Right. Why are they boxed in?
Why are they trapped in the register of warmth, praise, and humanization? If Alvaro Morales can make millions being a hater, why isn't there a female equivalent? Why doesn't a female anchor build a brand on ruthlessly tearing down Cristiano Ronaldo's ego or mocking a quarterback's poor decision-making with sheer venom?
That's a great question.
The answer is that this asymmetry is a massive clue. It proves that what we are watching from female broadcasters is not authentic, unfiltered analysis. It is a carefully constructed defensive mask. They don't feel they have the societal or professional permission to show hostility to male athletes on camera because their entire presence in that space is predicated on being agreeable guests in a male domain, so they over-index on warmth.
But the question is, what happens when that mask comes off? To illustrate this, we really need to look at two specific scenarios. We have transcripts based on real patterns of behavior in the industry. The first is an on-camera broadcast, and the second is what happens in the parking lot afterward.
Let's play you an example. This is a clip from a sports program, a female reporter covering the Senesi call-up to the Argentine national team. Take a listen.
Okay, let's hear it.
Sofia, big news from the Argentine camp tonight. Leonardo Bellardi is ruled out injured, and Scaloni has called up Marco Senesi as his replacement. Walk us through it.
Yeah, it's a tough situation indeed. Leandro Velarde has been one of the most important pieces of this squad. So losing him to injury is genuinely difficult news indeed, both for him personally and for the team. Now, Senesi himself was very clear in his first statement. He said nobody wants to enter a national team this way. Nobody wants a teammate to get hurt. But being called up, that in itself is a moment of joy. And he's not going to pretend otherwise. He's been waiting for these opportunities for a long time.
And Scaloni's decision to go with Senesi, was that an obvious call, or were there other options on the table?
There were other names being discussed, absolutely, but Scaloni's choice wasn't random. Senesi has been consistent at a club level for years now. He knows the system. He understands what Scolari asks of his defenders. The positioning, the press, the ability to play out from the back. This isn't a panic decision. It's a calculated one.
Some fans might argue Senesi hasn't been called up enough recently to walk straight into his squad. Is that a fair concern?
It's a fair question. He hasn't had the continuity in the national team that some other players have had. But here's the thing. Senesi is a professional. He's been preparing as if every training session was his last chance. When you watch him at a club level, you see a player who have never stopped believing this moment would come. He's reliable, he's disciplined, and he keeps his head calm on the pressure. Those are exactly the qualities you need when you step in at this level.
And what does this tournament mean for him personally?
Everything. His future in this squad depends on what he does in these few weeks. This is his window, and honestly, I think he knows that better than anyone. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he surprises people.
Sofia, thank you. We'll continue after the break.
So hearing that, it is just an absolute masterclass in what I call an architecture of careful warmth.
Yeah, flawless professionalism. You listen to that and you think, okay, this is an absolute masterclass in sports journalism.
Right. The host asks Sofia about Marco Senesi replacing the injured for manager Scaloni squad. And listen to how Sofia constructs her answer. Every single observation is perfectly cushioned.
Very deliberate padding.
When the host tries to introduce a critical thought, asking if it's fair that fans are concerned, Senesi hasn't been called up enough recently to walk straight into the squad. Sofia instantly neutralizes the negativity. She redirects it immediately into tactical nuance and glowing character assessment.
Wait, she flips it.
She praises his consistency, his understanding of the system, his ability to execute the press, and his skill at playing out from the back. But she doesn't stop at tactics. She moves right into the emotional, empathetic shield.
Which is exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. She calls him reliable. She calls him disciplined. She says he keeps his head calm under pressure. She frames him as a dedicated professional who never stopped believing this moment would come, working tirelessly in the shadows.
It is an incredibly generous reading of the athlete.
Yeah.
And again, if you just listen to that isolated clip, you might think, well, she's just a deeply empathetic, highly professional analyst doing her job well. Do we really believe she's faking that entire sentiment? Is it really a mask, or does she just genuinely respect the player?
If you think she's just being genuinely empathetic, you haven't looked behind the curtain. We don't stop at the broadcast desk. We follow the talent to the parking lot. Now listen to this. What you're about to hear is a reconstruction, not a real recording, but based on a pattern so consistent it might as well be. Same woman, same night, camera off.
Let's hear what happens.
Finally, I was listening in the car. The great chosen one who will keep the team afloat. As if running behind a ball is more important than being a good husband or a good father. I don't get why going to a national team is such a massive thing anyway. All I know is that he's going to be absent at home now. His wife does everything alone because the man is a big deal for kicking a ball. And the women that are going to throw themselves at him. You think reading the game means he's read his wife's expectations well?
So don't get me started. Yeah, they all did eventually. If he hasn't done it already, they all do it.
Exactly. So just say it there. It's known.
I can't.
Why not? Everyone knows anyway.
Oh, because that's not what I'm there for. I'm there for football. The moment I say something like that, I'm done. Finished.
So instead you sit there and say he's disciplined, incapable, and underappreciated.
And that his presence is fundamental to the fence's structure. Yeah.
Fundamental to the defense's structure. While his wife is home being fundamental to literally everything else.
All of them, Kara. I don't care if it's Senesi or Lucandro or Messi himself. At home, they're all the same. Every single one.
Every single one.
Come on. I have another segment in an hour. I need coffee before I have to go call someone else fundamental.
Okay, so we hear that and the contrast.
The contrast is genuinely staggering.
It is pure, unadulterated cynicism, and it completely strips away the illusion of the broadcast we just talked about. The mask doesn't just slip, it is ripped off, soaked in gasoline, and set on fire in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's gone.
Let's look at exactly what happens at 11:47 p.m. Sofia is walking to her car with her friend, Caro. Caro immediately mocks the broadcast, dismissing Senesi's job as, quote, running behind a ball while his wife does everything alone. Caro questions if reading the game, the exact tactical praise Sofia just gave him on national television, means he actually reads his wife's expectations well.
It's savage.
And what does Sofia do? Does she defend him? Does she say, actually, Caro, he's a dedicated professional and tactically brilliant? No. Sofia entirely agrees. She completely capitulates to the street-level hostility. She says, and I quote, they all cheat eventually.
Wow.
She admits, point blank, that she only praises him because that's what I'm there for. She says, the moment I say anything like that, I'm done. She cynically repeats her own on-air praise fundamental to the defensive structure as a deadpan joke between friends.
All a joke to them.
And then she delivers the killing blow. She says, all of them, Caro. I don't care if it's Senesi or Lucandro or Messi himself. At home, they are all the same, every single one.
It completely reframes how you watch these broadcasts. The psychology underneath it is breathtaking. The way the friend, Caro, weaponizes the broadcast vocabulary is fascinating. She takes the very tactical legitimacy Sofia built on air and uses it to mock the athlete's presumed domestic failures.
Yes, and the most crucial analytical shift here is the shift from the individual to the category. On camera, Senesi was an individual. He was Marco Senesi, a player with specific traits, a specific history, a specific tactical utility. He was a human being worthy of professional respect and nuanced analysis.
Right.
Off camera, the individual completely vanishes. He is instantly swallowed up by a massive negative category. Men, all of them, Caro. At home, they're all the same. Every single one.
It's a huge generalization.
It proves that on camera, he's reliable, was never a description of the man. It was just Sofia's corporate uniform. The parking lot reveals what she actually thinks. And what she actually thinks has absolutely nothing to do with Senesi's defensive positioning. It has to do with domestic resentment.
Wow.
It has to do with who takes out the trash, who is absent at home, who is unfaithful. She is projecting a generalized, culturally trained resentment of men onto a professional athlete she is paid to analyze.
So when a female analyst is giving a glowing review of a player's composure on a Tuesday night Champions League broadcast, we have to wonder, is she internally rolling her eyes? Is she internally thinking about how they all cheat eventually? Is the warmth just a toll she pays to exist in the space?
That is exactly the uncomfortable truth we are forcing onto the table. It's a dual reality. The public deference to male competence versus the private assumption of male deficiency. And the moment you point out this glaring, undeniable hypocrisy, people become utterly furious.
They lose their minds.
When you expose a societal survival mechanism, the people using that mechanism tend to panic. Because you aren't just critiquing a sports broadcast, you are holding up a mirror to a two-faced culture. And society has developed a very specific, highly predictable deflection mechanism to deal with this exact kind of exposure.
Right, because if you bring this up at a dinner party or if you post this observation online, you don't get a polite disagreement. You get a barrage. And there is a framework to understand exactly how that barrage operates.
Yes, I am going to introduce you to the SIGN framework. I want to credit the late Kevin Samuels, who popularized this concept a few years ago. SRGN is an acronym that perfectly maps the deflection mechanism society uses when uncomfortable truths about female behavior are dragged into the light.
It's very accurate.
It explains how people shift the focus from the argument to the character of the person making it. Because if they engage with the argument, they lose. So they have to destroy the messenger. SIGN stands for shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. Let's break down exactly how each of these letters operates, because once you understand this, you will see it everywhere.
Let's start with the S. The S is for shame. How does the shaming tactic work in response to this specific observation about female broadcasters?
Shame is the first line of defense. The immediate reaction from the culture is, you should be ashamed for even thinking this. It's an attempt to make the observation itself socially taboo.
Right, just shut it down before it starts.
The goal isn't to prove that female broadcasters are actually genuine. The goal is to make the person pointing out the hypocrisy feel like a social pariah. They'll say, how dare you analyze women's private conversations this way? It is so inappropriate for you to be monitoring how women speak in the parking lot.
It's just a deflection.
Yeah. It's a silencing tactic disguised as moral superiority. It relies on the assumption that observing female behavior critically is, in and of itself, a moral failing.
And if shame doesn't force the person to back down, if the person says, no, I'm not ashamed, this is a valid observation, the mechanism rapidly escalates to the I. Insult.
Insult is where it gets highly personal and very aggressive. If you point out the hypocrisy of the sports anchor, you are immediately labeled. You are a misogynist. You are an incel. You are just a bitter, damaged person projecting your own failures with women onto these successful, independent broadcasters.
Name-calling, essentially.
Notice what happens here. We are no longer talking about Sofia and Caro in the parking lot. We are suddenly talking about the psychological defects of the messenger. The insult is a smokescreen. It's a way to completely avoid addressing the fact that the street meme and the parking lot transcripts are entirely accurate reflections of reality.
Yeah, they avoid the topic entirely.
It's an ad hominem attack designed to disqualify you from the conversation so they don't have to answer the premise.
Which is incredibly effective, because nobody wants to be publicly branded with those labels. So if the messenger survives the shame and the insult, we move to the G, guilt. This one always feels a bit more insidious to me. It's manipulative.
Guilt is deeply insidious because it weaponizes your own affections against you. The deflection becomes, think about your mother. Think about your sister. Think about the women in your life who have supported you, who have loved you. How can you hold this cynical opinion when you owe so much to women?
Oh, that's a classic move.
It tries to frame a specific observation about a specific behavioral pattern in a corporate sports media environment as a sweeping betrayal of every woman you've ever loved. It's completely illogical, of course.
Makes no sense at all.
Pointing out that a sports anchor is performing a contractual lie has absolutely nothing to do with how much you love your mother. But guilt is a powerful emotional lever to pull when you are losing an argument. It attempts to make you feel that holding a critical thought about female behavior makes you a bad son, a bad brother, a bad partner.
It demands loyalty over objectivity. Which brings us to the final letter, the N. The need to be right. This is where the deflector abandons the original argument entirely and creates a new one they can win.
This is the absolute favorite tactic on social media. The need to be right involves reframing the observation into a fake policy debate. You say, it's fascinating how female sports anchors praise men on air but express contempt for them off air.
And they respond with,
The deflector responds, oh, so you think women shouldn't be allowed on television? You think women don't know football? You want to drag us back to the 1950s?
total straw man.
They fabricate a fake policy position banning women from TV, and then they heroically defeat that fake position. They get all the applause from the audience for defending women's right to work, while your original factual observation about their two-faced behavior goes completely ignored. They win a debate you never started, just to satisfy their need to be right.
The sequence deploys so fast. Shame, insult, guilt, need to be right, SIGN. And the core point here is that if the parking lot behavior was actually a lie, if it was easily disprovable, people would just disprove it. They wouldn't need SIGN.
Exactly. If the observation was false, you wouldn't need a 4-step psychological defense mechanism. You would just say, actually, here's the data showing that female anchors are equally positive off camera. Here are the recordings of them speaking with deep respect for male athletes in their private lives.
That doesn't exist.
But that data doesn't exist. The evidence is right in front of us. The fact that society's preferred response is character assassination proves that a clean, logical counter-argument is impossible to construct.
It really does.
There's a brilliant example of this dynamic from Argentina. Francisco Onetto, a highly prominent criminal defense attorney, was being interviewed on television. He was simply defending a male client, doing his job, arguing the law. And he faced an absolute screaming mob of feminists on the panel.
I remember this.
They were attacking him, insulting him, trying to shout him down, deploying every letter of the SIGN framework simultaneously. And his response on live television broke the internet.
It's one of the greatest live television moments I've ever seen. The clarity of his response under pressure was astounding.
It was a verbal mic drop. He looked at the panel and said, in Spanish, La fortaleza de tu agravio demuestra la debilidad de tu argumento y el tamaño de tu miedo a debatir.
Wow.
I will translate that for you listening because it perfectly captures everything we are talking about today. It translates to, the strength of your grievance reveals the weakness of your argument and the size of your fear of debate.
The size of your fear of debate. That is the SIGN framework captured in a single devastating sentence. The louder you scream, the weaker your position.
It perfectly diagnoses the panic. And right now, I need to take a moment to speak directly woman to any female listener who might be feeling their blood pressure rise right now, because I know this is an uncomfortable mirror.
It definitely is.
If you are listening to this breakdown and you feel triggered, if you feel personally targeted by this analysis, I want you to stop. Look in the mirror. Are you reaching for the SIGN framework right now? Are you desperately trying to cast yourself as the victim? Are you calling me names in your head to avoid dealing with the reality of what I'm saying?
The very harsh reality check.
Yeah.
People do not like having their survival mechanisms exposed.
It is harsh, but it is necessary. Because here's the absolute reality. Women who do not possess these two-faced traits, women who are actually genuine in their professional and private lives, they don't feel attacked by this observation.
They have nothing to hide.
They hear about Sofia in the parking lot and they simply think, thank goodness that isn't me. And they keep listening. They find the psychology interesting. The ones who play the victim, the ones who scream the loudest, who rush to insult and shame, those are the ones who feel exposed.
Because they see themselves.
They see themselves in the parking lot transcript. They recognize their own cynical performances. They know they have smiled in a man's face for a paycheck and then mocked him to their friends. The intensity of the reaction is its own kind of answer.
We have a lot more to get into. Let's continue after the commercials.
And before we step away, I want to challenge you. If you've observed this gap, if you've seen the street meme reality clash with the corporate broadcast reality, send us your thoughts. We want your raw, unfiltered observations at braincastfm@gmail.com. We are just scratching the surface here. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and ask yourself, when the cameras turn off in your own life, what mask are you dropping?
Hey, boss, I got an idea. Why don't we go commercial free? What?
Let's go.
Braincast FM.
So before the break, we established the core pattern. Women who trash men on the street become their biggest advocates the moment they get an ESPN contract.
We played you the audios, you heard it. Now the question is why? And that's exactly where we are going right now.
Exactly. I mean, let's get right into it because we really need to figure this out.
We do. And to understand why this massive flip happens, we have to look at the space between two very different worlds. Like, we have to look at the difference between how people act when they're getting paid, when they're on the clock, and how they act when the cameras are finally turned off.
Right, when they're just walking to their cars.
Yeah, exactly. Because that parking lot, that space where the microphone is taken off, that is where the truth actually lives. I mean, everyone desperately wants to believe that what they see on television is real life. We want to believe the bright smiles are real.
Oh, for sure. It's just human nature to want to believe it.
Right. We want to believe that when someone praises someone else on a shiny studio set, that praise is coming from the bottom of their heart. But if we want to figure out why a woman can stand on the sidewalk and casually say men are terrible, and then sit in a high-tech studio a week later and say a male athlete is amazing, We have to talk about what a job actually is.
Yeah, what it actually means to go to work.
Exactly. We have to talk about what it means to be a professional. And, well, more importantly, what we use the word professionalism to hide.
So I feel like the first thing people are going to say is exactly that word, right? Professionalism. Like she's just doing her job.
Oh, 100%. That is the immediate reaction. It is the easiest excuse we have, and it's a really comfortable one. Like, a lot of you listening might be sitting there thinking, well, come on, they are on television. They have a very specific job to do.
Right, the format just demands it.
Exactly. You might think they are just suppressing their personal opinions because the format of a sports show demands it. You know, they are acting like any professional broadcaster would act. And honestly, it is a nice thought.
It makes sense on paper, at least.
It totally makes sense on paper. You go to work, you smile, you do what the boss says. But that clean little theory just completely falls apart when you actually look at how people behave in the real world. I mean, specifically, if you want to see why that excuse doesn't hold water, we need to look at Argentine culture.
Okay, wait. Why look at Argentina specifically to figure this out?
Because if you want to test the theory that women are simply suppressing their opinions for the sake of the job, you have to look at a place where women famously and proudly do not suppress their opinions. Anyone who has spent any time around Argentine culture knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a very expressive culture.
Very expressive. And let me be clear, this isn't an insult at all. It's just a reality of how they communicate. They are loud. They are wildly passionate. They absolutely do not hold back what they are thinking. Right. They just put it all out there.
Exactly. In fact, there is a perfect Spanish phrase for this exact trait. It's no pueden con su propio ingenio.
No pueden con su propio ingenio.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It basically translates to they cannot help themselves. It means that if an Argentine woman has a thought or a feeling or just a spontaneous perspective on something happening right in front of her, it is coming out. She is going to say it.
So she's not holding it back no matter what.
Never. The urge to inject her personal opinion into any room she walks into is just baked into who she is. And the fascinating thing is, you see this everywhere on television down there. The professional filter does not stop it.
Oh, really? Even on TV?
Even on TV. Watch a normal, everyday morning cooking show. The female host isn't just standing there politely smiling and stirring the pot while the chef talks. She is giving her strong opinion on the recipe. She's arguing with the chef about how much salt he used.
Right in the middle of the segment.
Yeah. She is bringing up a story about her husband or her kids right in the middle of chopping onions. The professional format of a cooking show does not silence her. And it doesn't stop there either. Watch a legal panel or a political roundtable or a serious morning news show.
And they do the same thing there.
Absolutely. The women sitting on those panels are not waiting patiently with their hands folded to be called on by a moderator. They are not biting their tongues because a director in an earpiece is counting down from 5 and telling them to be quiet. They interrupt. They challenge.
So the format of the show just simply does not matter.
It does not matter. The unwritten rules of television broadcasting do not matter. They will tell you exactly what they think right then and there because they cannot help themselves. A microphone and a camera do not act as some magical filter that suddenly erases their personal opinions.
But look, let me just jump in and ask you a genuine question here. Speaking as a woman yourself, do you recognize this cultural trait? I mean, is it really that hard to suppress your true opinions unless something massive forces you to?
I do recognize it. I totally recognize it. And honestly, yes, it really is that hard. As a woman, just observing how we move through the world, I can tell you that our true feelings, our actual personal opinions about people, they almost always bubble up to the surface.
So just find a way out.
Always. We are communicators. We share what we feel. If a woman is sitting on a panel or even just sitting at a dinner party and she privately thinks men are useless or she finds a specific guy annoying, she is going to show it. It might not be a shouting match, but it will come out.
Like a specific tone of voice or something.
Exactly. It might be a quick side eye. It might be a sarcastic joke that lands just a little too hard, but it will absolutely come out. It takes a massive, overwhelming, undeniable filter to make a woman completely suppress her natural urge to criticize or speak her mind.
So what happens when these same women go on sports television?
Well, that is where the entire dynamic flips on its head. In every single television format, they speak their minds, except for one. Male sports television. Suddenly, in that one very specific environment, this deep cultural urge to argue or criticize just vanishes.
It just disappears completely.
Into thin air. You take an Argentine woman who would normally interrupt a cooking segment to give you a piece of her mind, and you put her on a panel discussing male athletes, and she becomes relentlessly positive. She is totally measured. She is calm.
Wow. That is a huge shift.
It's massive. She praises these men constantly and consistently. And that right there, that is the tell. That exception is the biggest clue we have that something else is going on.
The tell. What do you mean by the tell?
I mean, it proves that professionalism is a fake excuse. Think about it just logically for a second. If this was really just about acting professional, if she was just suppressing her real feelings because the director told her to play nice, the mask would eventually slip.
Right, because nobody is perfect all the time.
Exactly. Humans aren't robots. At some point, the true culture, the true personality would break through. You would see a flash of real irritation. You would hear a sharp, unscripted take about a player making a mistake. She would let something real slip through the cracks.
Because that is what happens everywhere else.
Exactly. But it doesn't happen here. It just doesn't. Which means something else is doing the heavy lifting. The director in the booth isn't keeping her in line.
So something else has to be controlling the behavior.
Yes. Something about the sheer status of these male athletes is doing the work. The status itself is forcing her to change her entire natural behavior. It's the fact that she is sitting in the orbit of millions of dollars, worldwide fame, and elite success.
So the status is the only thing strong enough to keep her quiet.
That is the only thing. And to really explain how this works, like the actual mechanics of it, I want to use a really simple comparison. I want you to think about a Walmart greeter.
A Walmart greeter. Okay, I'll bite. But a sports anchor has to study stats and know the game. A greeter just stands there. How are those the same?
I know it sounds like a weird jump, but stick with me because the core function is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yes, the sports anchor studies, but what is she actually doing with that study? Let's picture the Walmart greeter first.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You walk up to the sliding glass doors of a supercenter. They slide open. And right there, standing on a little mat, is a woman in a blue vest. Her entire job, her only real function in that specific moment is to look at you, smile, and say, "Good morning, welcome to Walmart."
Right. It's just a welcoming presence.
Exactly. She seems warm, she seems happy to see you, but let's be real about what is actually happening in that interaction. Nobody walking through those doors actually thinks that woman genuinely loves them.
No, definitely not.
Right. Nobody thinks she is sitting there at 7:45 in the morning on a freezing Tuesday, watching the 73rd customer walk in and feeling a deep, warm, personal affection for that stranger. She doesn't know the customer.
She doesn't care about the customer's day at all.
Not even a little bit. The warmth she is showing is literally just her uniform. It's an emotional uniform. The smile is her job description. She was hired to stand in that specific spot, put on that vest, and project positivity at whoever happens to walk through the door.
And if she doesn't do it, she gets fired.
Exactly. It is a transaction. She trades her polite behavior for a paycheck. Now, map that to the ESPN anchor. The ESPN anchor has a contract. She signed a piece of paper that says she will sit at a shiny desk, look into the camera, and discuss male athletes with a baseline of professional praise.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Let's use a player like Senesi as an example. When the female anchor goes on television and talks about how disciplined he is, how composed he is under pressure, she is not saying that because she has a deep, genuine admiration for him as a human being.
Right, she doesn't actually know him.
She doesn't. Senesi's defensive record, his passing accuracy, his stats, those are just the raw material she needs to do her job. Think back to the Walmart greeter. The greeter needs a customer to say hello to, right? She can't just welcome a ghost.
Yeah, she needs a physical person to walk in.
Exactly. She needs someone to trigger her job function. For the ESPN anchor, Senesi is the customer walking through the door. She needs a player with a real career, real stats, and real highlights to point at. She can't just sit at the desk and praise nobody.
So Senesi's stats are just the customer.
Yes. She takes Senesi, she takes his career, and she uses them as the vehicle to deliver her smile and her praise. The praise is the welcome. This reframes the whole broadcast simply. She is not praising him because she means it.
She is praising him because that is what she gets paid to do.
That is exactly it. It is a contractual obligation to frame these high-status men positively. And this is the most important part. When her shift ends, the warmth ends. The second the camera light goes off, the contract is paused. The blue vest comes off.
And she just goes back to her normal self.
Yes. The smile drops, and she walks out to the parking lot and goes back to her default setting, which is often highly critical of men. It totally separates the action from the intention.
It really does. It's a fascinating way to look at it.
It is. And this brings us to a really foundational truth about how people operate in the real world. It's a concept that explains so much of human behavior, and you don't need to be an expert to understand it. You just have to look at the difference between revealed preferences and stated preferences.
Okay, stated versus revealed. Let's break that down.
It's just a simple way of saying there is a massive gaping canyon between what people say they want and what people actually do. And you see this everywhere in life, but it is never more obvious than when it comes to what women say they want in a man versus who they actually choose.
So what does the stated preference usually look like? What do they say?
Well, the stated preference is what sounds good out loud. Ask almost any woman what she is looking for in a partner. She'll tell you she wants a guy who's kind, a guy who is funny, someone who is emotionally available, who listens to her vent about her day.
Basically, the classic nice guy.
Exactly. The nice guy. That is her stated preference. That is what she tells her friends over brunch. It's a very safe, socially acceptable answer. Nobody judges you for saying you want a nice guy.
Right. But what about the revealed preference? What do they actually do?
You look at who she actually chooses to give her time and attention to, and what happens almost every single time, the nice guy, the guy who listened to all her problems, he stays in the friend zone.
Yeah, he's just sitting at home confused.
Totally confused, wondering what he did wrong. Meanwhile, she completely ignores him and chooses the guy with the car, the guy with the money, the guy with the status, the connections, the exciting lifestyle.
Bad boy, essentially.
Yeah, the guy who has options. And let's just speak plainly about what that means. Guys with serious money, guys with high status, they have a lot of options. And a lot of times, they cheat. They act arrogant because the world lets them get away with it.
But the nice guy wouldn't do that.
No. On the flip side, you have an everyday guy, let's say a guy working at McDonald's or a guy working construction. He doesn't have a million options. Because of that, he is going to be incredibly loyal. He is going to be dedicated to the woman he is with.
But he's not the one she picks.
No, he is not. Women do not line up to praise the McDonald's worker. You see it on Tinder profiles all the time. Women will literally write, if you don't own a car in your own place, don't bother.
They just spell it out right there.
Spell it out.
Yeah.
And this is why the sports television dynamic we are talking about exposes this so perfectly, because players like Senesi, they are undeniably incredibly successful. Their status is obvious.
Right. It's impossible to ignore.
And when a female anchor is on camera with them, her default setting of, men are a problem flips instantly. The switches flip. Suddenly, her attitude becomes, this specific man is fundamental.
So what flips the switch? Is it his character?
Not at all. It wasn't his character. It wasn't his kindness. It is purely his status. The status is the magic key that unlocks that level of praise.
Look, let me interrupt you for a second, just to ask you point blank. As a woman, is this really true? Do women really just ignore the nice guy for the guy with status?
Honestly, yes. It really is that simple. You always have to watch what people do, not what they say. Talk is cheap. Action is the only thing that tells the truth. And the truth is, status is the ultimate filter.
Wow. Okay, so what should guys actually take away from this?
Well, this is the part where I really want to talk directly to the men listening right now. When you are sitting on your couch and you are watching a woman on television call a player reliable or disciplined or deeply important, do not trick yourself.
It's a reality check.
A huge one. Do not think she actually values men that way. She is clocking in. She is wearing the Walmart greeter vest. It is a performance. Don't think for a second that women are going to talk about you that way just because you're a good, solid guy.
Just for doing the everyday stuff, right?
Exactly. You could fix the roof on your house by yourself. You could pay all the bills on time every single month. You could show up for every single one of your kids' games. You could stay completely loyal.
But none of that buys you that kind of praise.
Literally none of it. A guy fixing a roof doesn't get a highlight reel. The only thing that gets that kind of glowing praise from a woman like that is a TV contract and undeniable public status.
That's pretty brutal to hear.
It is, but it's the truth. And if you need proof, just remember the Sofia example. It proves the point entirely. Sofia was on television, camera rolling, calling Senesi disciplined. She said he was composed. She sounded like his biggest fan.
Right, she was doing the job.
She was doing the job perfectly. And then the camera turns off. 40 minutes later, she is standing on the street, and what is she saying? She's saying, all of them. Every single one, meaning all men are terrible.
It's a complete 180.
A total 180. And here's the harshest takeaway. You are not Senesi. And guess what? Even Senesi didn't escape it. He has the money, the status, the fame, and she still trashed him the second she was off the clock.
Yeah, even the guy at the top isn't safe when the camera's off.
Exactly. It is the exact same woman. One version of her is clocked in. One version of her is not. And I want to be really clear about something. Realizing this, it is not about being cynical or bitter.
It's just about paying attention.
Yes. It is simply about paying attention. Watch what people actually do instead of blindly believing the performance they put on when they are getting paid to smile at you. It grounds you in reality.
So you don't spend your life chasing a reaction you won't get.
Exactly. And that is what we always try to do here. We want to open your eyes to how the world actually works when the cameras are off. I want to thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
If you've noticed this dynamic in your own life, hit us up. Email us at braincastfm@gmail.com. We love hearing your stories. Braincast FM, where thoughts make noise.